1017 FM, 710 Keel, Robert and Aaron in the morning. And we are joined today by Dr. Jeffrey Sadow from LSUS, political science professor, head honcho, whatever you want to call. We had a conversation, Doc, with Chuck Marone from Strong Towns last week, and he was talking about we need to stop annexations. We need to stop growing our city outward. You have a little bit of a different perspective on that. Is that accurate?
Well, it depends on what your goals of annexation are. I mean, the way it works in this area, in Shreveport and surrounding area, is in order to have one, the Metropolitan Planning Commission goes through a process for each request. The ordinance for Shreveport that governs this goes into a long list of things that an annexation has to fulfill. And so, for example, it's going to follow a master plan. It's got to make sure there's not a bad impact on another part of town. That city, the net benefit in terms of costs for rolling out services and the like. So theoretically, for each one of these, if the MPC does a study and it shows that it meets all these requirements, then supposedly the annexation, the one in question, is good for the city.
When we had Chuck Marone from Strong Towns on last week, his basic premise is that cities across America are just spreading and taking on more infrastructure, roads and sewage, and the whole 9 yards. And he says that is just, it's not something that can be maintained over time. I guess you disagree with that, huh?
Again, it depends. I mean, in Shreveport, there's a process, and it supposedly prevents something like that from happening. If you follow the ordinance and you do all that, then for example, his concern there about infrastructure and the costs that it would have to taxpayers, if you follow that and the MPC comes up with a ruling that, in essence, this is going to bring more benefits and costs to the city, well, then, it meets that requirement. It would supposedly be a good thing.
Do you anticipate the city council will move forward with this annexation halt? I'm not sure. I mean, it has been proposed by one of the members, but to me, it doesn't make any sense because the things that are being asked for already as part of justifying this moratorium, those kinds of things are being done already in terms of studying these annexations, making sure that they meet this, that, and the other requirements in law that seem very reasonable, and the ultimate authority here is, of course, the city council itself. It gets one of these reports for each one of these annexations. It's up to them to decide whether it's a good idea or not. So, why have a blanket moratorium on it all when you're getting this information for each case and you can decide on a case-by-case basis whether it's a good thing. So the moratorium would just cut out all the good instances of potential annexations, throwing the baby out with the bathwater, essentially. Dr. Sadow.
Dr. Jeff is
Dr.
good.
Jeff is good?
Split
Okay.
the diff, kid.
You talked
whatever
about,
you like. I've been called worse.
You talked about good and bad. What are bad annexations? What annexations should we avoid?
Well, as the guest was noting last time, for example, you could say roll something out along just a road, just both sides of a road. That would be probably very expensive to try to provide or bring into the city systems that those kinds of utilities and maintenance. So that probably wouldn't work. But again, you would have a report done on these things, and it would show that there would be a net cost, and so you wouldn't want to do that. So, annexation is not in and of itself an unqualified good. But here, I think we have the procedures in place to make sure that annexations are a net benefit to the city.
Would you say that annexation in and of itself as a form of getting money for a municipality is in and of itself a bad idea? In other words,
no.
Well, we can spread the town out because there's some rich people out there and we can use their money to pay for everything they need.
Yeah, no.
Not at all. Again, you have to look at the net benefits and the net costs to the taxpayers, the existing taxpayers in the city. And again, if there are net benefits, there's no reason why you shouldn't pursue that annexation.
When I was talking to Mr. Chuck Marone last week, and when he brought up the point that we're discussing about, you just don't want to keep annexing, I said, well, you know what? I drive to Dallas. They don't seem to have a problem with that. They seem to be doing okay the way they do it, which looks to me to be unlimited growth. But he said, and I want you to comment on this, he said, Texas as a whole is just California waiting to happen. Do you agree with that or disagree?
No, I disagree. They're very different land use kinds of regulations in Texas as opposed to California. There's other economic considerations, policy considerations, and the like. There would have to be a major alteration in some of the ways that Texas does things for it to become another California.
Do you worry at all, as Councilwoman Fuller has put forth, as proffered, or whatever you want to call, that the annexations hurt neighborhoods like Highland, Broadmoor, Shreve City, et cetera?
It would be depends on a case-by-case basis, but again, that's something that's in our hands, because let's say we got an annexation and studies were done and showed, well, we might be beggaring this neighborhood or that neighborhood because of this annexation, and there would be a net negative impact on it. Well, then it's in the council's hands. They have that information. They can decide to go ahead with it or presumably not, given that kind of information. So it's all up to them. So I don't see any reason to complain in the sense you say, well, let's just get rid of all annexation to avoid those kinds of cases. You can avoid them already because it's in your hands to make that vote to have it or not have it.